We now go live to Philadelphia, where Dave Dombrowski is meeting with the media to tell his thoughts about the Russ Joy Show.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk about the Russ Joy Show here for a second. Now, you may or may not be aware, but Russ Joy is not a very tall person, and that's okay. We've always found a way to work our way around that. And I know the question has been asked, is there any chance of Russ Joy ever becoming elite again? And it's a question that I've pondered a few times. Can he ever be elite again? And I guess the question is, was he ever elite to begin with? I'm not entirely sure. While we're on the subject of elite or not, let's talk about the franchise cornerstone of the Philadelphia Phillies, Bryce Harper. Is he ever going to be elite again? That's a question that no one can seem to answer except for maybe Bryce himself. I think that there's a better than not chance that Bryce Harper may be the worst baseball player I've ever had the displeasure of having on my team, but I'm not sure yet. You'll have to tune in a little bit to find out. But getting back to the Russ Joy Show here, at least ever so briefly, I think we're going to take a hiatus from the show. I think it's actually better for us if we fill this time with things that people really want to see or things that people really want to hear. So we're going to actually replace this show with one that has 1 million callers who are going to call into the show with goofy names and little to no value that they can bring to the show. I think that's a better way for us to go. So we're going to consider that. We did that in Detroit. We're going to try that again in Philadelphia. So we will talk to all of you here very, very soon.
I'm going to scream. I will yell today. Dave Dombrowski, we have to talk. Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm going to show you figure that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. I just wanted good news on a Friday. I wanted a little bit of good news. All I wanted to wrap up the week was just a little bit of decent news today. It didn't have to be great news, just some decent news. And then I wanted a little bit of good news to be compounded with a little bit more good news. And we did. Like today, we did get some good news. There honestly is some good news in Philadelphia that gives me a little bit of hope. We got two pieces of good potentially news around the Philadelphia 76ers. I know, I can't believe it either. We got a little bit of good news there. But I feel like after a Thursday night that saw Sam Ersson give up 4 goals as the Flyers gave up a 5th on an empty netter. And I thought about what that team looked like last night. And I thought about the atmosphere in the arena and the lack of fans. I felt a little bit sad. And I also felt sad because I watched an executive of a team that many of us were willing to get hurt by again in the postseason, the Philadelphia Phillies. I watched as the president of that team embarrassed himself in front of the assembled media. And I thought to myself, well, it can't really get much worse than that, right? I mean, that's pretty bad. And then I saw a story going around about Saquon Barkley reading a book and people hoping that it's going to be A.J. Brown 2.0 with the book on the sideline. I thought, we're not going to talk about that. And I saw F1 is going to go behind a paywall, go to Apple TV, and I thought, that's interesting. All right, fine. I got to be honest with you. Where I thought the show was going to go today versus where it probably will go today are two considerably different things. Now, I don't actually know if we should start with positive or negative today, but I am going to tell you this. You are going to get an absolute mix of both. And I feel like I need to start negative and then trend positive. I feel like if we end on the good news and the upswing of things at the end of the show, which oddly enough has to do with the Philadelphia 76ers, I feel like if we go that way, then it won't be taking us into a weekend of misery. And that is what I want to avoid. I desperately, desperately want to avoid a miserable existence on the show today. I don't want that. I don't want that. So I'm going to probably start with the Phillies. We'll get into the Flyers, and then we will get into the Sixers. And if we have time, we will have a few little thoughts here about F1 going to Apple TV. And if you guys want, I could even open the show up a little bit. If you have your thoughts, your concerns, your comments, your questions, I will open it up to you. You see my handle on the bottom left side of your screen. If you're on Twitter, you can DM me there, and I'll send you the link to the show. And you can hop on the show and air out your grievances about Dave Dombrowski, maybe about the Flyers. If you have optimism around the Sixers, you can call in. That way, if you jump on the show, I'll have you backstage. I'll give you a heads up. You'll see a little private chat thing. I'll be able to say, hey, are you ready? You can tell me yes. And then, you can either come on here as audio only, or if you want to turn on the camera and let the world see your big, beautiful smile, you can do that as well. But I kind of want to open it up. And I also have video guy Amadeo. He's just kind of hanging out in the ether. And I'm going to be bringing him on and off throughout the show. Or maybe once I bring him on, I'll just never send him away. He's a lovely guy. Who am I to say? But it's going to be a weird Friday show because I really don't want to feed into the negativity around the Phillies. But I kind of can't help it because Dave Dombrowski can't get out of his own fucking way. And that is where, unfortunately, we have to start the show today. It is a piss poor effort by Dave Dombrowski in front of the media that is going to lead the show for better or worse. I like what Chris Fried said here, by the way. Russ starting as Negadelphine only to end up as Homer Russ. We'll try. KDub1323 over on YouTube says, always bad news, then bad negative news first. I appreciate it. I think that's what we should do. We'll start negative, we'll get positive. Okay. And JH is right here, says the Phillies did it to themselves. They did. Okay. I'm just going to take you back to some of my higher level thoughts around the Phillies season, just really briefly. I said all season, I wanted to believe in the Phillies again. And I said late in the regular season, I felt like this Phillies team had a much better chance of succeeding than the 2024 team because rather than start ridiculously hot and then play 500 baseball, not have a killer instinct, not be able to put the Mets out of their misery in the regular season and the Braves and all that, this team felt a little bit different. This team had to sustain a horrible setback in the loss of Zach Wheeler, but I did think that they had something about them that gave me hope. And let's be clear. Let me be clear. The Dodgers were a tough opponent. There is nobody that's going to try to whitewash that. I am not going to try to revisionist history my thoughts on the Dodgers series. But as you've seen the Dodgers take on the Brewers, it's pretty clear the Dodgers are a significantly better team. And you could play a lot of what ifs, right? Like if Strahm doesn't come into a game and give up a home run to Hernandez, and if the Phillies don't find themselves in a hole going out to LA, is it possible that there would have been a Game 5 back in Philadelphia? If the Phillies don't turn to Juan Duran in the 7th inning of a game on the road against the Dodgers, maybe Ryan Kirkring's not in at the end of an elimination game. Maybe you pick up a win. Maybe you are able to bring it back to Philadelphia. Like maybe it's possible. And then riding the high of a Game 3 and a Game 4 win, maybe you're able to get this one done. And I think the Phillies would have had a lot of success against the Brewers in a similar way to how the Dodgers have. I think the Phillies had as good or better of a rotation, at least in the Dodger series, than the Dodgers did. I really do. And we said it all throughout the series. The starters were not the problem for the Phils. The bullpen was a problem. And the fact that they didn't have anybody who could really stay hot in the playoffs and prevent an otherwise talented lineup from becoming an absolute disaster, a cold, disgusting mess. As long as they could avoid that trap, they had a chance to get against the Dodgers. But the two things that held them back were the bullpen and a cold lineup. And both of those things, both, not one but two, both of those things are something that I bemoaned out loud from last offseason through spring training, through the first half of the season, and even going into the trade deadline. The bullpen wasn't good enough, especially once you lost Jose Alvarado. The lineup wasn't good enough, and I didn't think that they had added a big enough impact bat to prevent the cold slump and prevent what we ultimately saw the Phillies bats do in 3 out of the 4 games that they had against the Dodgers. I didn't think they did a good enough job. Now, we gave Dave Dombrowski credit at the trade deadline because Juan Duran is a great long-term solution as the closer of this team. We're not going to pass over that. They never really replaced Jose Alvarado. Maybe you want to say that Duran was meant to replace Alvarado. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you want to say David Robertson was meant to replace Alvarado. I don't know. Maybe. The Wheeler injury is the thing that you could never really plan on, but it very clearly threw their hopeful Ranger Suarez / Jesus Luzardo going to the bullpen plan, and it threw it in the garbage, right? Like maybe the Phillies were of the thought, Luzardo, Suarez, they were going to be able to kind of, take over that left-handed reliever role out of the bullpen that Alvarado would have had. And you know that Suarez is really good in big moments. Luzardo can certainly get hot. But it was a whole lot of ifs and buts. And to me, it was an ill-conceived team. From the start of the season through the trade deadline, it just felt like something was missing. And you can go back, and again, you can look at it, and you can say, the Phillies gave the Dodgers a real run for their money, even though it was a 4-game series. They gave the Dodgers a run for their money. They looked more competitive than the Brewers have. And if we're being fair, I think that the Dodgers, if they play the Mariners, are going to run roughshod on the. I think that if the Blue Jays meet the Dodgers in the World Series, I then would say the Jays maybe have a chance, maybe, because I think that lineup will be able to find some success. Maybe. But by the time this postseason is over, we may very well say the Phillies had the best chance of beating the Dodgers. They played the best. And I saw AJ Przinsky has a podcast. I forget what the name of it is. Don't hate me for it. Hate me for other things, but not that. And Przinsky said, I think that this was the World Series. And his co-host said, I think that Phillies-Dodgers kind of was the de facto World Series. It was the matchup of the 2 best teams in baseball. And so I understand when there are people that are of the mindset, this team was really close. You don't blow this team up. This team was really close. It's okay to run it back. If you can convince Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto and Ranger Suarez and maybe even Harrison Bader to re-sign, this is a very talented team that won 96 games. It could have there was a realistic possibility to get to 100 wins with this team. And, maybe you could have ended up as the 1 seed. You would have played the Dodgers in the second or, in the NLCS, and maybe you would have gotten past them there. Who knows? 7-game series. Do you like the Phillies' chances better in a 7-game series than a 5-game series? I would say yes. You can play a whole lot of ifs and buts. You can play out a lot of hypotheticals. You can play out a lot of different strategies. I don't necessarily believe that this Phillies team had every little thing going for it to be able to win. And when you look at what very likely could be the Phillies' path into 2026, it feels like Dave Dombrowski, a.k.a. Timu.com, Mr. Rogers, he outlined a plan and a path that to me says, if Dave Dombrowski were to have his way, if he had his druthers, he wants to run back 2025 and 2026, which is interesting because he decided to run back 2024 and 2025. And before that, he ran back 2023 and 2024. And before that, he kind of ran back 2022 and 2023. See, this is the problem. Dave Dombrowski is a highly respected front office executive in Major League Baseball. But the difference between Dave Dombrowski in prior stops and this one is that Dave Dombrowski has had big ball moments. He has been willing to burn a farm system to the ground to push all the chips into the center of the table and go for it in a given year. Now, whether it's an organizational edict that he's been handed down that has prevented him from doing it, or if he perhaps has looked back at his prior stops and said, you know what? I don't want to do that in Philadelphia. I don't want to leave Philadelphia without a farm system. I like the team. I like the farm system. I think we have good players. If that's his thought, it's fine to some extent. But when you look at the ages of Realmuto, Castellanos, who it seems like they're just going to, take behind the woodshed, Schwarber, Realmuto, Castellanos, Harper. When you look at those guys, they're not getting younger. Zach Wheeler has a very finite period before he said he's going to retire. Now, that, of course, is before thoracic outlet syndrome and the blood clot. Does that change his timeline? Will he give the Phillies another year? Who knows? Will he be able to pitch effectively when he comes back and be an ace? Who knows? Dave Dombrowski played it very, very conservative. He played it very, very safe. He decided to double down on vibes. This year, there was a little change. Garrett Stubbs starts in the minor league. We could go back and relitigate all of it, but here's my concern. I listened to Dave Dombrowski talk to the media, and it sounded like a guy that wants to just run as much of it back as possible. Said essentially that Kyle Schwarber is like a leader in the clubhouse, a leader in the locker room. Well, that's a guy that you probably should have re-signed a year ago. There is not a single fiber of my being that believes in the offseason going into the 2025 season that Kyle Schwarber would have turned down a fair market deal to return to the Phillies. I am not convinced that Kyle Schwarber a year ago was so dead set on making it to free agency that the Phillies could have put a $30+ million a year deal for 4 or 5 years in front of him, and he would have just outright said, no, I want to go see what my value is in free agency. I don't believe it. And you want to know why I don't believe it? Because we could go back to the video of Kyle Schwarber crying in the clubhouse, tearing up, the chin, the lip quivering. I believe him. I believe the genuine human emotion shown by Kyle Schwarber in that moment. And I am very resolute in the belief that Schwarber felt undercut and that Dombrowski and or Middleton undervalued him. And he went out and he had an MVP caliber season. Now, he had a piss poor at best postseason. And you could make the argument that he has been part of the problem these last few years when the Phillies haven't been able to get over to the hump. And that when the Phillies bats have gone cold and you look to a guy like Schwarber to perform, he hasn't done it. And that's fair. But it wasn't the Schwarber of it all that caught my attention. No, what caught my attention in Dave Dombrowski's remarks to the press were his thoughts on Bryce Harper. And I'm going to tell you right away that for as ridiculous as some of what I thought Dombrowski had to say about bringing back Rob Thompson and adding another year to his deal, that Kevin Long is coming back, that they're going to take the bench coach and they created a new role for him, but they're going to have a new bench coach for next year. It sounds like, for the most part, coaching staff is back. We get a report from Matt Gelb that says the Phillies are either going to trade or release Nick Castellanos. Which, can we have a side note there? Just a real quick aside. If you're going on the record with a report, the Phillies are either going to trade him or release him, doesn't that already mean that the Phillies have tried to make trades? Like they've already tried to have trade discussions and nobody wants him? Like you're not going to put out there, right? Even if you're talking on background to the media, you're not going to tell somebody, yeah, well, we're either going to trade him or release him. Because that takes any negotiating leverage you have, unless you're somehow going to convince a team like, I don't know, the Boston Red Sox. You know what, guys? There are 4 other teams that are interested. Why? Give us your best offer. I don't think it's going to work, but maybe it will. But it seems like Castellanos will be gone. So there will be at least one change. Will it be Crawford, who they were afraid to bring up all year? Who knows? We'll find out. Will they be able to convince Harrison Bader to come back? Maybe. Who knows? Here's the other problem. Bader played really well as a Philly. If you look back at his career stats, his career averages, he overperformed. Do you really want to sign Harrison Bader to a multi-year deal above what he probably would have gotten last offseason if he had been a free agent, and then have unrealistic expectations for him? I'm not so sure. I don't know if I would. I like Harrison Bader. I think he should be back. But do I want to break the bank for him? No. It's Dombrowski's comments on Bryce Harper that made life very, very interesting. And we're going to get there in a second. Now, I see people asking, how do I get in touch with the show? How do I call into the show? I have the link. You have to DM me over on Twitter or somewhere else. I guess let me know in the comments where you're going to DM me, and I can drop the link to you there. I can't put it in the description of the episode. I'm not going to just drop it. If I drop it in the live chat, I'm afraid of what will happen. So we're going to be very careful. But I'm pretty much going to people who I think are not going to make a total mess of this today. So Chris Freed, I see you just DM'd me. I'll send you the link in a minute. I want to go out to the Dombrowski quotes first because they really pissed me off. And they pissed me off for 2 reasons. And one of the reasons might not be what you expect. So first, I want to go out to Dave Dombrowski, who was asked about Bryce Harper, the former MVP. And, for as much as you might want to give Kyle Schwarber a hard time for not performing, I think we can all agree this team was built on the back of Bryce Harper. This team was built with Bryce Harper to be the best player on this team, or at the very least, the best non-pitcher on this team. And if we are being fair, which of course we are, he was not the best player on the team this year. I would say he probably wasn't particularly close. Let's go out to Dave Dombrowski, because it is very important to not skew the man's words or skew the man's tone. You're going to hear him. I'm going to tell you why I'm upset. Here's Dave Dombrowski talking about Bryce Harper.
And with regards to Bryce, what is the club's view on his season? Was it performance-wise, and also, why do you believe maybe that it was maybe just a down season for him and not the start of maybe a downward trend?
Well, I don't think, in Bryce's case, of course, he's still a quality player. He's still an all-star caliber player.
All right, let's go back to that real quick. He's a what player?
Case, of course, he's still a quality player.
He's a quality player. That doesn't sound like elite. That doesn't sound like a superstar. Quality player.
All-star caliber player.
All-star caliber player. All right, that puts you in a certain bracket. Puts you above the fray to some extent. Okay. Not the worst thing you could say. All right, we'll keep going.
He didn't have an elite season like he has had in the past. And I guess we only find out if he becomes elite or he continues to be good. It's not like...
Well, that's a shot across the bow. We'll find out if he can be elite or if he's going to be good. Pretty big chasm. All right, so you have good. You have quality. I don't actually know where quality and good stand. We're going to say that they're on level pegging. Good quality, all-star level, elite. So we're going to say that those are the three levels. So what he's effectively said is he's still a quality player, so he's still good, and that he can be an all-star player, so he could be second tier. But the question of whether or not he can be elite, be MV3, be the MVP quality player the Phillies brought to town, he's not sure he can get to tier 3. He's at tier 1. Can he get to tier 2? Dombrowski seems to think so, but can he get to tier 3? Well, they fucking hope so, because the whole team is built around Bryce Harper being tier 3. Now, the age and the injuries would tell me, in a realistic way, he probably ain't going to be tier 3 again. He might have stretches where he can be tier 3 again. But you're probably looking at a guy that can still be all-star caliber, but is not going to be an all-time, well, certainly not going to be an elite guy in Major League Baseball. Certainly not for multiple years. If you want to be really optimistic, you can say 2026, maybe he can get back there. But does anybody think that by 2028, 2029, he's going to be elite? No, you're going to hope at that point that he can, at the very least, be all-star adjacent. All right, we'll continue.
It's like if you say to me, I look around the league, I'm trying to think Freddie Freeman.
Tampering.
Really good player, right? He still is a good player. Is he elite like he was before? Probably not to the same extent, and so that's nothing negative. Freddie's
That is a totally fair point. Freddie Freeman was once elite. He's not elite now. What does Los Angeles have that Philadelphia doesn't? Better players than Freddie Freeman. Okay, yeah. Mookie Betts, I would say, better player than Freddie Freeman. Probably, right? Mookie Betts. Shohei Ohtani for sure. Tier 3. Will be tier 3 for a long time. So they have at least two guys that you would look at on the surface and say, oh yeah, two guys that are definitely better than Freddie Freeman, who is the comparison that Dave Dombrowski chose to make. I didn't pick Freddie Freeman. Dave Dombrowski did. So if we want to say Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, let's just say those are the three. Let's say those are your three best hitters if you are a Dodgers fan. Freeman's number 3. Who's better than Bryce Harper on this team? Or who did you come into the 2025 season, Dave Dombrowski, and say, this guy is definitely better than Bryce Harper? The answer is nobody. Not a soul. There's not a goddamn player on this team that's even remotely close to being better than, I don't know. He's a quality, could be an all-star player, but elite, I don't know. We'll have to find out. That's a failure on Dave Dombrowski's part. You came into 2025. We all kind of knew through injuries. There was a Tommy John surgery 2 years ago. There was the wrist injury last year that really hampered Harper late in the season and into the playoffs. And he even admitted going into this season was still an issue. And then that came back early in the season. And then he didn't wear an elbow brace and got whacked on the elbow. So the injuries started piling up. They came into this season with Bryce Harper needing to be tier 3 when we all probably knew he could maybe be a tier 2 guy. Okay. And by some stroke of something, some stroke of genius, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, Kyle Schwarber became a tier 3 guy this year. But do we think that Kyle Schwarber is going to be a tier 3 guy next year? Do we think Kyle Schwarber is ever going to be a tier 3 guy again? I don't know. I would assume no. It feels like a hell of a year to have a career year. But would I put Kyle Schwarber down for 50 plus home runs? No. This was like the best Kyle Schwarber you could ever have. I'm not convinced you're going to get it again. Okay. So to recap, Dave Dombrowski says, I don't know if he can be an elite player again. He'll have to show us if he can be elite, if he's just going to be good. Maybe he can be an all-star. Well, then guess what, Dave? You have a lot of work to do. Because there's nobody else on the team that can be significantly better than Bryce Harper as currently constructed. Trey Turner's not that guy. If Matt Gelba's right, then Nick Castellanos certainly isn't that guy. We all know he's not, but you're going to kick him to the curb. Okay. Schwarbs? If Schwarber has another MVP caliber season next year, then sure. Cool. You have one guy. That's one. Bryson Stott? No. Brandon Marsh? No. JT Realmuto? No. We already said Trey Turner? No. Harrison Bader? No. Justin Crawford? No. Alec Boehm? Ha! So who's the guy? Oh, you want to bring in Alex Bregman, maybe? Maybe you want to bring out... Is he no. He's not significantly better either. Pete Alonso. Is Pete Alonso... If you have to send Bryce Harper out to right field, bring in Pete Alonso to play first base. Is Pete Alonso going to be a tier 2, 2.5, 3 player? No. Maybe he could be a tier 2. Is he going to be better than Bryce Harper? Probably not. So again, by Dave Dombrowski's own set of metrics, Freddie Freeman, third best player, give or take, on the Dodgers. Very clearly behind Shohei Ohtani, behind Mookie Betts, Freeman. The Phillies don't have two guys above Bryce Harper. And even if they were to go out and get Pete Alonso, that might be one guy. If Schwarber were to have an incredible season, that might be one guy. Not ideal. All right, back out to Dave real quick.
Tremendous player. And that's, to me, is Bryce. Can he rise to the next level again? I don't really know that answer.
That is a challenge. You want to know why he put this out here? Here's the other part. Go back to it.
Can he rise to the next level again? I don't really know that answer.
Can he rise to the next level? I don't really know the answer. That is a shot across the bow. That is a decision. That is a conscious decision by Dave Dombrowski to say it. We'll get into why in a second, because there are only two reasons he would have said it.
And really, he's the one that will dictate that more than anything.
That's a challenge.
That's what it comes down to. So I don't think he's content with the year that he had. And again, it wasn't a bad year. But when I think of Bryce Harper, you think an elite, right? You're thinking one
you would
of the
hope
top
so.
10 players in baseball, and I don't think it fit into that category. But again,
it wasn't elite. And you better hope that he can be elite, Dave. You built the team.
Very good player. I have no idea when you see somebody. I have seen guys at his age. Again, he's not old. That level off. Or I've seen guys rise again.
Oh, he's going to rise again. He's going to be Jesus or a Phoenix. Which one is he going to be? There is a Jesus on the team. His name is Jesus Luzardo. Not ideal. So here's why I'm frustrated, right? By his own admission, Dave Dombrowski failed to build a team that can compete for a World Series. He admitted it. Now, he didn't tacitly say, I, Dave Dombrowski, Temu.com, Mr. Rogers, failed to build a World Series contender. But what he told you is that Bryce Harper, who has had injury concerns and is not getting any younger, is either a good player, maybe an all-star player, but he's not sure can get to be an elite player. Compared him to Freddie Freeman, who is maybe the third best batter on the Dodgers. The Phillies don't have a clear number one and number two going into next year that is going to be above Harper. That means that Dombrowski failed. Now, why did he challenge Harper publicly? There are two reasons. One, he's an idiot. I might question a lot of the decisions that Dave Dombrowski makes. I may question whether or not he has the balls to go all in. But that's not where I'm at. I think this was an open challenge for a very clear reason. One, he wants to deflect a little bit of the pressure. He wants to deflect the pressure off himself. And for whatever reason, he is very committed to this coaching staff. He wants to deflect the pressure off of Rob Thompson, Kevin Long, and the coaching staff. I don't know why, but he does. You would think that if you've come up short year after year after year, and the bats have gone cold year after year after year, you would make a change to the coaching staff or to the lineup. And as of right now, the only changes that we know for sure are likely to happen is the bench coach is moving to a newly created role. They're going to have a new bench coach. That's it for changes on the coaching staff right now. And that apparently, reportedly, Nick Castellanos is either going to be traded or like sent to the gulag. Okay, that's all we got. And then it's questions about, is Real Muto going to come back? I would tend to think yes. Is Ranger Suarez going to come back? I don't know, but I hope they bring him back. I'd like to go into next season with another fantastic rotation. That'd be great. Are they going to bring back Harrison Bader? I really don't know. It would be cool to bring him back, but I also don't want to set unrealistically high expectations. I also don't want to block somebody. If they're really willing to bring up Crawford and they think he can be an impact player, I don't want him to block. Okay. So that one's a little bit iffy. Schwarber is this, Schwarber's this like really weird thing. I don't want to totally compare it because it's not fair and it's not a perfect comparison, but like Kyle Schwarber is to Dave Dombrowski what Matt Niskanen was to Chuck Fletcher. There is a certain level of like over-reliance on this one player to keep things afloat. Now, Schwarber reached a level this past season that Matt Niskanen never did as a hockey player, right? Schwarber is a Shohei Ohtani away from being MVP of the National League. Matt Niskanen was never that level, but he was a really good, steady defenseman who the Flyers brought in because they thought he was going to be able to stabilize the top pair with Ivan Provorov. Provorov would learn and then eventually develop into the number one they wanted him to be. Schwarber, they're putting all of the eggs in the basket. I mean, Dombrowski practically said, we're going to do whatever it takes to bring him back. John Middleton practically said, we're going to do whatever it takes to bring him back. But then I watched Kyle Schwarber practically crying in the locker room after his team gets eliminated. And I think to myself, is it because he knows he's not committed to coming back? Is it because he knows that the Phillies aren't actually willing to make the kind of offer it would take to bring him back, that maybe a Cincinnati would offer him, or maybe that a big money, big market team would offer him? I don't know. But to me, it feels like there's been a whole lot of conjecture around, well, if Dombrowski and Middleton will pay him, he will come back. They will outbid. Schwarber has to be happy. He's going to make a lot of money wherever he plays. If he's not going to be happy here, he's not going to re-sign here. And if he feels as though he was undercut and lowballed last offseason, perhaps there's not really a realistic path to coming back here. I don't know. But we get to the other possible reason that Dave Dombrowski sends this shot across the bow. What if Dave Dombrowski looks around at what we are all looking at right now? What if Dave Dombrowski, highly respected front office executive in Major League Baseball, what if he looks around and says, we are committed to a lot of money in a lot of years to a Trey Turner that will probably never be worth it. We are committed to one more year of Nick Castellanos, who we might send to the gulag. We are no longer committed to JT Realmuto, who's getting up in years, but we probably still want to bring back, but we're technically not under any responsibility to bring him back. And we have a big money potential guy in Kyle Schwarber that we could also let walk. What if Dave Dombrowski is looking at this saying, I can either motivate Harper to be better or I could piss off Harper enough to leave? Think about that for a second. This is not a hyperbolic take. This is not me saying the Phillies should want Bryce Harper to leave Philadelphia. They should want him to demand a trade out. No. But if you're Dombrowski, there is something to the idea of like, what is there to lose? If Dombrowski pisses off Bryce Harper and Bryce Harper ultimately says, I want out, is it the worst thing for the Phillies? It's bad. I mean, optically, it would be really bad for the team. It would be. It might hinder their ability to convince free agents to want to come here for a bit. It might. Money also talks. And if you get mercenaries that want to just chase a big paycheck and maybe fit your timeline a little better, a little bit younger, maybe it's not the worst thing. Maybe it's a net positive for the Phillies. Maybe Dombrowski's looking at it saying, yo, this wasn't Bryce Harper's clubhouse. Again, he put on the record that Schwarber was the leader in the clubhouse. Could he kind of be signaling, you know what? Schwarber really was the leader on this team. Maybe Real Muto's really a leader on the team. What if Harper's not the guy that we on the outside think he is? Like, what if many of us have been thinking Bryce Harper's really the leader in the locker room, but he's not? Is it possible that Dombrowski is trying to put a little bit of doubt and maybe open up the conversation with Harper about, like, look, we can do things a certain way, but like kind of giving into what you've wanted. We got you Schwarber. We got you Castellanos. We got you Turner, and none of it's really worked out particularly well. What if it's that? I'm not saying that that's 100% what's happening. I'm not. And I will give Dombrowski credit that they didn't extend Harper a year and a half ago or whatever it was, when it was rumored that Harper wanted an extension added on to an already egregiously long contract. But you don't go on the record saying what Dombrowski said unless you're either willing to burn the relationship or motivate the player to reach another level. And I honestly don't know which one it was. And I also don't know that we can rule either one of them out. Now, I saw somebody over here said, it's just him being honest. Kevin at iRock Philly says, I think Dombrowski was just being honest about Harper. And that could be true. And if it is, it's great, right? Like, we want honesty out of the front office. We want honesty out of the coaches and out of the players. But then that's what leads me to say, then he unintentionally outed himself as doing a bad job building this team. Because if you had asked me last year or at the start of the season, are the Phillies a World Series contender based on what they have in the lineup? I'd have said no. I kept saying they need another bat. I don't know what that looks like. I was willing to play the game of, you get somebody who can be at the top of the order that's going to get on base nonstop and is going to make it a slump-proof thing because it's just a high on-base guy. Or I said, maybe not a Juan Soto, but somebody who's another big bat, preferably from the right side of the plate, that's going to be able to help you get over the hump. And maybe that guy will somehow be able to avoid the virus that is like the Phillies go cold-itis. I'm not sure. But I didn't really believe that this lineup was it. Remember at the trade deadline, I said, big bat, bullpen arm. Big bat, bullpen arm. They got the bullpen arm. They didn't get the big bat. Harrison Bader, lovely guy, lovely player, not a big bat. And now it all comes back to what John Middleton is ultimately willing to do. Because if you're John Middleton and you really want your fucking trophy back, which he said publicly, you're not making a front office change. You're not making a coaching change. And it does seem like the vast majority of next year. Are you nuts? Because the fans will ultimately fill Citizens Bank Park from probably late June on. They probably will. Because the Phillies will probably be a competitive team. And everybody likes to get out to Citizens Bank Park because it's a beautiful park. And people like baseball in the summer. But you're not going to fill it up from the start of next year if you're running it back again. Like, it took a while for the Phillies to, I think, bring people back in a meaningful way this year because of how last season ended and that they didn't add to this team in a meaningful way. If you're going to run it back again next year, don't be surprised if the fans run the other way until you prove that something is going to be markedly different in 2026. And I'm just not sure that you're going to be able to win people back. Those quotes, though, they are maddening. Absolutely maddening. All right, I'm going to go out to the comments here. I'm also going to, if you want to get on the show, if you want to, quote unquote, call into the show, you can shoot me a DM over on Twitter at JoyOnBroad. I'll send you the link. Chris Fried, I know, wanted to get in, so I'll send it over to him. And then anybody else who wants to get in, I can send you the link over on Twitter as well. And eventually I'm going to figure out a better way to include people on the show. But for now, this is the best. This is as good as it gets right now. And at some point here, I'm going to bring Video Guy Amadeo on because I want to get his thoughts on the Phillies and then, of course, the Flyers. And we are going to end with positivity today because, oddly enough, positivity is coming from the Sixers, which makes me think that we're in like the Upside Down or something, which is part of a show I've never watched. So, okay, really quick. I'm going to go out to the comments here really quickly. I see people arguing about the who are we arguing about? Oh, we're arguing about the lineup. Okay. I'll keep a lot of that out. Ford says, don't let the fact that the Phillies ran into the Dodgers distract you from the fact that the Phillies didn't address the same hitting issues. That is correct. Kevin and I Rock Philly says, appears the assumption among fans and media is the Phillies try to re-sign Schwarber, Real Muto, and Bader, and trade Castellanos and Bohm, and then a big free agent bat to replace one of those two. I don't know how you do all of that in one off season. I just don't see it. Joe Papel says Fletcher Moore didn't know Niskanen planned to retire. My money says Washington knew when they traded him here. I think that Niskanen saw how bad the Flyers were at that point and did not, under any circumstances, want to come back to it. But Fletcher was like the guy who gets left at the altar, and he kept saying, well, he was like, Niskanen will be back. He'll be back. We're going to give him time. Remember, he said he got like the call, like driving in his pickup truck or something, or Niskanen was driving his pickup truck and then found out, he's going to retire. And he was left holding the bag. And I kind of feel like Dombrowski's setting himself up for that. Oh, Kyle Schwarber's going to go talk to other teams in free agency, but he's going to come back because we're going to have the best offer. He's going to come back to us. And I won't be surprised if he doesn't. And if he doesn't, I'm going to have questions about this past offseason and what the original offer was. JH says, if Harper demands a trade and they get rid of him, then who's the next object of ire and public shaming of Dombrowski? I like that there's a U in there, Dombrowski. And if you were that person, would you want to resign? Or is that maybe that's resign or is it resign? Who's the next object of ire? Well, if Harper demands a trade, I don't know who you're going to shoot your ire at, right? Because Real Muto. We all kind of know like what he is. Trey Turner. Trey Turner is the answer. Trey Turner is getting paid an incredible amount of money, and he is probably never going to be able to perform up to what Phillies fans expected. That's who will get the ire, almost 100%. Connor Buss says, if this is Dombrowski's plan, it is borderline organizational malpractice. I think that might be it. JH says, if Dave runs Harper and Schwarber away, I'm out on the Phils until the Flyers win a cup. Well, then that's going to be a while. I don't know, JH. So you're not going to be enjoying a lot of sports for a good long while, unless you're also an Eagles fan and a Sixers fan and a Union fan who aren't even going to get love this week. But, here's to the Union. Brianna Torres says, Phillies the 2026. Sure. Yeah. Joe Papel asks, is it possible Dombrowski wants out? Create a rift and Middleton has to let him go. No, I think if Dombrowski wanted out, he would have gone to John Middleton and said, I want you to fire me. Or I want to be done. I'm old. I'm tired. And I work with children. CM Punk reference. And then he's going to just resign. But that didn't happen. Connor Buss says, I pray every day Dombrowski and Morey get the boot. You got to get in a better place with God. Because your prayers aren't being answered yet. Although the latter might be coming. All right. I see that we have somebody who's been a long time commenter on shows. And I will bring him on the show now. I have no idea how this is going to go. But long time commenter. He just gave himself his own blessing, which we will keep his denomination to himself. Chris Freed. Chris, how are you?
What's up, sir? First time, long time. What's up?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. First comment. Anthony needs to come in, set up a meeting between you and Dombrowski, break out some kielbasa, and then get the peace between you and him. Honestly, you're way too negative on the GM.
On Dave Dombrowski?
Yes.
Nay. All right, continue.
I mean, I would love to have seen what the Phillies would have done if Wheeler wasn't hurt. The difference between the Phillies and LA, starting pitching. There wasn't enough. The $350 million payroll creates a dynasty, essentially. And that's the difference between LA and everybody else, especially if you're watching the NLCS. I mean, the Brewers are getting a run a game.
Mm-hmm. I don't think the Phillies starting pitching was anywhere near the top 10 reasons why they lost the series. Christopher Sanchez pitched masterfully in 2 games. Mm-hmm. Aaron Nola somehow did something of use, and Ranger Suarez backed him up. That was perfectly fine. Jesus Luzardo was excellent in the start, and then also came out of the pen. I don't think it was starting pitching. I don't think that was
the starting pitching by the Phillies are outstanding. The problem is LA has this historic starting rotation right now. If you look at the numbers, they have
the Phillies. I think the bigger issue is that the Phillies weren't able to solve the bullpen. That was supposed to be an Achilles heel of the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. Listen, they got out on Ohtani early in game 1. Mm-hmm. They scored their runs, and then they pieced out for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
That was bad.
If you want to look at a decision that was made by Topper, that was a disaster. It was going to Robertson instead of bringing Ranger for the 7th inning.
Correct.
Where in game 1, LA went with the second starter. And that was the difference in game 1.
I think that there's some merit to that. And I think I talked about on this show that we heard every single game, Ranger is available out of the pen.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see him until, was it game 3? It was game 3 that he came in backup of Nola. And then there were questions about whether or not Suarez was hurt again.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have one other point?
Pick another team. Flyers, Eagles, or Sixers?
It's your choice. Dealer's choice.
I'll go with the Eagles.
All right, go ahead.
I think they win this weekend, but they're in trouble for this season. They've been out-yarded in every game so far. And if you want to go back to, Jeff Lurie 20 years ago talked about the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
And back then he did have the gold standard. The gold standard is Andy Reid, and unfortunately he's in Kansas City, not here.
Chris, you're a lovely person. I appreciate you commenting on the shows. I never want to hear Andy Reid's name on the show ever again. And I bid you adieu. Have a nice weekend.
Have a good one.
Chris Fried, everybody. Andy Reid. I was told I was too negative about Dave Dombrowski, and then I get Andy Reid. I'm going to die. I might be dying on the inside right now. But at least Chris Fried is a lovely guy. Absolutely lovely person. All right. I've been told that there's somebody else I need to send the link to, so I'm going to send the link to him as well. I can't believe Ford hasn't jumped in here yet on the ability to hop on the show today. I'm honestly kind of shocked. I'm going to bring Video Guy Amadeo on here quick before we move on to further misery with the Flyers. Amadeo, how did you feel about Dombrowski?
I was falling asleep, honest to God, watching it. I mean, he talks so melancholy. He's so mellow when he talks. It's definitely sleep-inducing, I'll tell you that. I was shocked that he called out Bryce the way that he did, and granted, he wasn't wrong to call out Bryce, but I don't know. I don't know. It's they're running it back in 26. That's what they're doing until they prove us wrong. Yeah, it's funny too. I put out obviously a facetious tweet the other day.
All
right. I said,
what was
Dave,
your facetious tweet?
I said, obviously there were 75% of Phillies fans that didn't enjoy this season, Dave. Nothing you're going to say is going to make people happy. And obviously I got the overly positive Phillies fans saying like 75%, that's a very high number. How do you not enjoy the regular season? Blah, 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 blah. It's just like, guys, shut up, please. You like, how are you so frustrated? Like, the moves that you want to be made are so unrealistic. You want stars at every position. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want the worst hitting outfield in Major League Baseball history. I want the star players to actually show up in the playoffs. I mean, I just want better. If your expectation is just make the playoffs, pat on the back, it's fine, Phillies, you just made the playoffs, it's good, it's cool. I mean, then what's the fucking point? Shouldn't they put the expectations on themselves to win a championship? That should be everyone's expectations. If you don't win a championship, it's a failure.
Yeah. You're in a top sports market with one of the highest payrolls in baseball, with some of the highest compensated players at their respective positions. You should compete for and probably win a World Series. I keep saying this, but like, we are probably going to look back at this era as being the ultimate what if. I don't think there's even one that's close. I've heard people say, what about like the Flyers teams at the end of the aughts, like that 2007, 8, obviously the 2010 Stanley Cup final run. What about those teams? And like, what about the what if Chris Pronger doesn't get hurt? And what about if the Flyers don't trade away Mike Richards and Jeff Carter? Whole lot of what ifs. It's not the same thing. We have very rarely seen a sustained period of time where a Philadelphia team was viewed as the best team or one of the 2-3 best teams in their respective sport and not gotten over the hump, not gotten it done. The 08 Phillies, oddly enough, were maybe the least talented team of that span. And every year they went backwards, lost the World Series, lost the CS, lost the DS. Like, it's a shame, but you can look back at that and say, that sucks. But at least they had one title to show for it. Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, they all got their chip. Bryce Harper has not gotten it. This is like setting up for like one of those unfortunate, like, wow, I can't believe they didn't win one.
It's exactly like it's the McNabb era Eagles. You can definitely compare it to that.
That could be fair too. Yeah, that could be fair.
I would even throw the 97 between 2004 Flyers. Those teams were also very
Those
good.
teams, yeah,
They weren't able to win.
they were great teams. There were a lot of very good teams. There were a lot of good Lindros teams. You had some good LeClaire teams. There were teams that
Primo
probably could have
teams.
competed. You can even make a case if you wanted to. There is a very brief window in the Embiid era, most notably the year with Jimmy Butler, where you say you're a multi-bounce Kawhi Leonard traveled three-pointer from that team maybe winning a championship. How differently will we look back on Joel Embiid if he had won that championship versus if he never ends up winning one, period? Probably look at it very differently. If this Eagles team hadn't won Super Bowl 59, but they had been in 2 of 3, would we have looked back at this era differently? You know, like there are a whole lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
Can look back at a lot of Union teams that got to the U.S. Open Cup final or got to a semifinal or got to MLS Cup final and didn't get it done. It's a little bit different. All right, now I can see the man, and he is here. He is also a frequent commenter on the show, and he has decided to hop on the show here on a Friday. We're going to go out to somebody who I have no idea where he's going to go with this. I have absolutely no idea what he intends on bringing up on the show. We're going to go out to AJ. AJ, welcome to the show.
Dude, how is it going today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, man, always great to see you. Hey, long time, first time, longer time, buddy. You and I have had a lot of conversations about the Rangers and the Flyers over the years. Obviously, I'm a longtime Rangers fan, but I also watch a lot of hockey in general. I also follow the Oilers, the Wild, Detroit, and the Flyers. The Flyers are not a playoff team. The Rangers are. All right, listen to me. They both have new coaches this year. Tocchet was always talked about to be this big fundamentals guy. Like they're going to do the simple things right. And I'm not seeing that in the Flyers yet. Last night's game kind of showed me like it's not sticking yet. Whatever Tocchet's selling, they're not buying yet. And maybe they get it, maybe they don't, right? But I mean, you could have taken an entire nap on the back checking of some of those goals last night. And obviously one of them's an empty netter, but 5 on 15 is not a good ratio for any of your goalies, right? Rangers last year started 12-4. All the stats said they should not be winning, and they collapsed in December, right?
That they
The
did.
reason why it was working, they were scoring more than they should have been, and they have Igor and net who was stopping well above what was expected, right? He bailed them out of games.
Excellent
He
goalies.
saved
will
them.
do that. Yeah.
Excellent goalies will do that. That will save you games.
Yeah.
Flyers don't have that.
Well, the Rangers are a more
staying
talented team. The Rangers are a much more talented team.
I will
The
agree
Rangers,
with that. On the
the
same
Rangers
aspect, though.
collapse last year was
Mhm.
of epic proportions, and they
Yes.
scapegoated their coach to keep Drury in place, who
Mhm.
hasn't exactly built a cup contender this year either. And I hate to bring this up because I know how painful this is.
Go ahead.
But the Rangers have yet to score a goal at home in 3 games. Do you know
I
who
am aware
hasn't
of
had
that.
that problem? The Philadelphia
Flyers.
Flyers.
Yeah,
The
100%.
Philadelphia, they score at home. Okay.
So here's why I have some more faith in the Rangers this year, right?
Uh-huh.
If you watch the early games last year versus what they're doing this year,
Because they took the Maple Leafs to overtime last night.
oh God, don't even. Oh my God,
That's why you
they're
have
back checking.
Mhm.
They're playing defense. They're not leaving Igor out to dry. All right. A lot of those goals that have gone in have been weird, like bounces off of ref that went the other way.
Mhm.
The systems in place that the Rangers are doing are going to eventually yield better results. If you look at the stats, the expected goals over the last 3 games were 12 goals. They scored once. All right. Statistically, that can't keep up. So at the end of the year, we're going to get to in February, March. It's going to be, are the Rangers the wild card slot, or are they going to be the Flyers? And it's going to be the Rangers this year because the
The Rangers
fundamentals
should
on
be
the Rangers
better
is
than
better.
a wild card. What are we talking about?
Dude, I'm going to be honest. Mika's getting
The
older.
Rangers are a
Panarin's
better
not looking
team.
great.
If the Rangers are in a wild card position, if it's a battle between the Flyers
Mhm.
and the Rangers for the final wild card spot, then the Rangers have puked all over themselves again, and the Flyers are going to rejoice in the streets that they have a chance at making the playoffs.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong.
I have a lot of love for you, but I'm very upset with you. You pulled a lot of upset
Good.
things out of me.
You know what? Hopefully I can direct your ire somewhere else for a little while and not at
I'm going to go yell at
baseball team.
Amadeo now. You brought this
Get him.
out. Now I'm going to go yell at Amadeo.
Get him.
Thank
Go
you.
get him.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you later, buddy.
Thank
Love you.
All right.
Amadeo.
What did I do?
I've known
That's
AJ
my
for a
fault.
long time. I've known AJ for a long time. And maybe it's my fault. Maybe it's my fault. It's not my fault that he's a Rangers fan, but maybe it's my fault. The Rangers are a good team. The Flyers, I think, are still a potential playoff team. But that does lead us into what AJ did not see last night. The thing that he did not hone in on, which is the number one concern I have right now for your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers. Sam Ersson. Sam Ersson is a legitimate concern. Sam Ersson looked like shit last night. And the unfortunate thing is, Sam Ersson has looked like shit in both games he's played in this season. Because even if you wanted to go back to the Carolina game that they lost in overtime and say, well, it was an okay game, he still gave up 4 goals. If you go back to the preseason, Sam Ersson looked like a disaster, did not instill any confidence. If you go back to last season, 3 groin injuries, which resulted in multiple trips to the IL. Not great, right? Not ideal if you're a Flyers fan. Not ideal if you're trying to prove that you can be the number one netminder after Carter Hart was sent away, or whatever happened there at the end of in 2024, spring of 24. Ersson has lost every bit of equity he had built up with this team and this fan base. And it is unbelievably clear at this point that right now their number one option in net is a guy that was brought in to be the backup, Dan Vladar. Is that crazy?
Yes, it's very crazy. I mean, no one expected Vladar to play as good as he has in the 2 games that he's played. Ersson, you could probably expect that. Good old 6-6. What did he have? A 6.66 save percentage or something like that last night?
6.67. Yep.
6.67. Whatever. Same thing.
6.67. I saw that at a hockey game. It wasn't. Thankfully, it wasn't at the Xfinity Mobile Arena last night. I saw they did a 6.7 cam somewhere, and I was
What?
like,
What does that even mean?
You know, 6.7.
I know what people say. It. I just like.
They
what
did.
is this?
They did a 6.7 cam where everybody's supposed to just go like a 6.7.
Was that what the kids were doing next to Mike the organist yesterday?
Yes, that's what they were doing yesterday.
Oh God,
that is what they were doing. Yes, they were doing the 6.7, and then one of the security guards yelled at them to go away, and then they ran away. They dispersed like rats on the deck of the Titanic or something. Did I just compare small children to rats? I might have.
Yes, you did.
What are some other things that need to disperse? 6106. So Sam Ersson stinks, and neither start have given a lot of confidence. I would assume that Vladar is in net on Saturday against Minnesota. He kind of has to be. What we talked about on the Press Row show last night and on Snow the Goalie the night before was where things are going to get interesting is, to this point, Tocchet has just been alternating the goalies, presumably waiting for one of them to step up and to take that next step forward and to grab the job by the huevos, right? I expect Vladar to be in net on Saturday. The real question is, does Tocchet buck the trend on Monday? Because if Vladar plays Saturday, regardless of win or loss, if Vladar holds the Wild to 3 or fewer goals, 2 or fewer goals, because he's been very good this year, if he does that, is he back in net on Monday against Seattle? And I tend to think there's a non-zero chance it happens, because it's still very early in the year, but you kind of do at some point have to say, I feel more confident in this guy. We're going to ride this guy as a starter a little bit more. I don't think it's a sustainable thing to go 50-50 splits for 2-3 weeks to start this season. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think at some point you're going to have to establish the de facto number one goaltender. And if Vladar continues to play that he is, you have to give him all. You can't do this 50-50 split. And granted, I think that's what they were going to do, especially with how tough the schedule was to start the season, and not drain one goaltender out in October. Yep. But Vladar is going to have to get a bulk of the starts if he's going to be one of the reasons why you're even competitive at games to begin with. Ersson, you just don't have a chance. That second goal that Scheifele scored, granted, it was off of a bad turnover at the blue line. Sometimes your goaltender has to bail you out, and if it was a snipe by Scheifele or not, it's point blank. You got to stop the puck.
Yeah. That goal that he gave up was a backbreaker, and it was a total momentum killer. Sometimes it's not how many goals you give up. Sometimes it's more of, when do you give those goals up? And if you remember, the Flyers were in a spot at that point in the game
where in the second period, it feels like they have an opportunity to maybe get close. They were peppering Hellbeck with a ton of shots, and it felt like they were close to a breakthrough. You give up that goal about halfway through the period on a shot that just simply put should not have found the back of the net, and it is a backbreaker. It sucks. And then you go ahead, right? Flyers score with 3-ish minutes left in the period. They feel like they're clawing their way back in. They're chipping their way back in. And then what happens about a minute later? You have another goal go in. Now that one, the third goal is the one that hit a Jet, kind of fell to the ice, and then the Jet rams it home past Ersson. And on first blush.
It went off Jennings' knee. I think it actually went off Cates' ass and into the net.
Went off Cates' ass, did it?
Yeah, I think it did. I think it did.
I'm looking back here real quick at an angle. Let me see real quick. Does it touch the keister of Cates? I thought that it hit Barron's leg and then dropped down. Maybe it hit Cates' ass. But either way, the puck's going wide. It hits a body. It drops. And Morgan Barron puts it in the net. But I guess my point here is you're finding yourself getting your footing in that second period. And Ersson gives up a weak-ass goal. And then right after a minute, I think it was about a minute and a half, minute and 20 seconds after the Flyers get a goal to cut the deficit to 1, Ersson gives up another one. And it's not a great shot. Yes, it bangs off a body. And like maybe you can make the case that it's not his fault. It just feels like it's always at the wrong time. And every Sam Ersson start has at least one goal that you say, that one can't go in. It feels like it's every single time the guy's in net. That cannot happen. That at some point needs to stop.
And especially after you made it 2-1 on a tippet goal.
Correct.
It even granted the third goal was the one that had bounced off 20 billion different things, but it's still goal at the wrong time. And plays to the fact, Ersson allows goals at the wrong time. And so far, Vladar has not. You got to ride the hot goalie. I
will say, Vladar, people need to go back and look at the level of competition that Vladar was playing against late last season. And this has come up a few times now, so I think it's important that we also kind of touch on this. But like, Vladar was used to essentially shelter Calgary's younger goalie from having to play the toughest teams last year. And so I'm just really quickly, let me see if I can toggle this by year. Of course I can. I know what I'm doing here. Great guy, top notch, top level dude. I just want you to take a look at the caliber of teams that Vladar had to play against last year, especially in the second half of the season. Like, let's go. Do we want to go like from January on? We could look at it from March on. All right, I'll just show. We'll pull this up real quick. So just to give people an idea of what kind of opponents Vladar was taking on late last season. If you want to look at February, Utah, all right, whatever. St. Louis, Winnipeg, obviously very good team. You had Seattle, 3-2 win. Washington, 3-1 win. A 3-0 loss to the Panthers. Dallas, an overtime loss. The Maple Leafs. Not a great game there, but he only played, 20 minutes. He didn't start that game. He came in relief. Gave up only one of the 6 goals that the Maple Leafs scored. Got a win over the Rangers. Rangers obviously fell apart, so that might not be the best one. Islanders, 4-3 overtime win. A shootout win over Colorado. And wrapped up the season with a win against the Kings. I'm not saying that whole thing is murderer's row by any stretch. But there were some tough teams in there. And you also have to remember that Calgary, late in that season, was trying to make a push. They wanted to pick up points, obviously, down the stretch last year. I think Vladar is actually kind of rising to the occasion. And the way that we wanted Ersson to kind of grab the job by the balls last year, and then he never really did, and then he had all the injuries. Vladar has come in here, and it looks like he now believes, maybe for the first time, that there's actually a starting job to win. And I saw, KDub1323 said over on YouTube, this is the only team Vladar is the number one goalie for, and that's sad. I could understand that if we look across the league, Vladar probably isn't a number one anywhere else, probably. But if he ends up being a guy that can put up somewhere around a 900 save percentage, which this team just has not had, that maybe gets you in striking distance of the playoffs. Maybe. Now, whether or not that's a good thing or not, I don't know.
It's just a question, how long is it going to last? You don't know. He hasn't played more than 30 games in his career in a season. And once he eventually gets that above 30 game plateau, that's when you're going to have the question marks. Is his body going to be able to keep up?
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Well, I mean, listen, there was another thing, and Chris Fried brought this up. The empty seats at the Flyers game last night is bad omen. I don't think it's a bad omen necessarily, but I was kind of surprised by just how empty the building was. The lower level was unbelievably lacking attendance. And so then I saw Jim Cochran says, why would anyone pay to go see a Flyers game? The promise of a decent team in a year or two doesn't equate to fans spending hundreds of dollars to see these guys lose. This is a thing that I think the Flyers have really missed the boat on. And I get that Comcast is Comcast, and I get that everybody has to make a buck. Hockey's too expensive to go see. I stand very resolute in the belief that it is too much to go see a Flyers game. I always come back to families. I know that not everybody has families. Not everybody has 4 kids like I do. I get it. I'm just some jackass that decided to have a big family. But like, it's not cheap to go see a hockey game. You can go to Citizens Bank Park and get tickets for like $15 on the secondary market, even when they're a good team in the summer. Right now, I'm looking on the Flyers site. If you wanted upper level tickets, so the section like 215, row 7, $75 a ticket. Let me just price that out for a second. Let me go to, in my case, 6 tickets. All right. If I wanted to take my family to a game and buy tickets off the Flyers site, I'd either have to get assembly room tickets, which I'm pretty sure are the standing room only tickets. I think. Could be wrong. If they're not, let me see. Assembly room. Do you get an assigned seat number for that? I don't know if you do. If you do, great. If you don't, not great. Those are $56 each. If you want an actual seat in like the 200 level up top, the cheapest seat on the Flyer site is $103.90. Let me go through the whole thing here real quick. If I wanted to purchase tickets for a family of 6 on the Flyers site, which goes through Ticketmaster, it's $510 in face value tickets plus $113 in service fees. Total bill, $623.40. Add to that parking, concessions, and if you have the audacity to get your kids something at the game, there is a very realistic path to $800 to $1,000 for one night to go take your family to see a game. That is a problem. It is a huge problem. And it will continue to be a problem as long as hockey prices remain as high as they are. Now, I'm actually going to go look really quick at one of my favorite secondary sites that doesn't charge hidden fees, because now I'm interested to see if they are also as bad of a price on the secondary market. Let's go over there really quick.
I'm on one that includes fees. So I'm looking at Saturday's game. The cheapest tickets are $44 a piece. That's including the fees.
Okay. And where are those seats?
Section 219. A.
Okay.
That's row
So maybe-
14. So you're in the back row.
Maybe, wait, no, that's what I pulled up. But I was looking at the Flyer site. You were looking at secondary. Okay.
Yes.
And now if I go on secondary on the one that I would go on, I'm seeing cheaper seats. Let me do it by 6 again. I'm set at 5 right now. If I wanted to get 6 tickets, $89. No, there we go. 48. I can see $48 a ticket with fees included.
Monday's cheaper.
But like, that's the thing too, is like, what if you can't make Monday work and you know,
That's
Saturday
true.
is your only thing. So even at that price, all right, you're looking at $288. If you're a family of 6, $288 is probably somewhat tolerable. I'll give you that. But you have to go secondary market. You also have to know what you're doing. If you were to show up at the game and go to the box office, like, again, like, I'm sorry. I think it's ridiculous that it's $600, $700 to get tickets from the team directly. Like, that to me is insane.
I want to compare it to a team that's like actually good. So
All right, so who are you going to compare it to?
I'll compare it to Toronto because obviously a lot of
Don't
people
compare
go
it to Canada.
not the Canada.
Come on, Canada.
So the cheapest tickets for a Toronto Maple Leafs game this Saturday is
Is this a secondary market? Okay.
Secondary market. $104, including the fees.
Okay.
That's the cheapest ticket.
If I look at seats on the Dallas Stars website for Stars versus Blue Jackets next week, $13. I could make a case it might be cheaper to drive the family to Texas, maybe even fly the family to Texas and back and get tickets to a Stars game than it is to watch the Philadelphia Flyers. That's crazy to me.
Here's the Panthers, $25.
The Panthers are 25. Well,
Yeah.
you know,
I know
people
it's
in Florida don't really care about hockey. Isn't that weird?
But it's like
Isn't that
it's
really
like the
strange?
idea you're the two-time defending Stanley Cup champion and you're charging $25 a ticket on the secondary market.
Here you go. JH says it cost me $8.50 to see the Flyers in Minnesota with my family, 5 people. Crazy. Absolutely nuts. Brian Knowlton said I wanted to go to Toronto or Montreal this year. Toronto $195 per ticket, Montreal $175 per ticket. Well, maybe I'm crazy. All right. We talked about Carter Hart on Press Row Show. I don't feel the need to talk about it right now. I also
positive.
forgot about it. I forgot about it until now. Yeah, I think I'm done being negative today.
Come on, Joel Embiid's
right.
back.
Do you
Championship's
want to get back to some positivity? Should we get to some positivity here?
Yes, you
before
need
we leave?
positivity.
Hey,
in your
really
life.
quick. Before we get to the positivity, I want to get to the wow, that's interesting news and note of the day, as the show goes very long today. And that is that F1, if you're an F1 fan, is leaving ESPN, which is a ballsy move. They're going to Apple TV. What I don't fully understand is I guess there's like some kind of F1 TV thing that you could have to like watch all of the races anyway without having to have ESPN. And I can't figure out yet if you're going to have to buy an additional package in addition to an Apple TV subscription in order to get F1 races. So like if you're an MLS fan, if you're a Union fan, you pay for Apple TV and then you pay for the MLS package for the season. I don't totally know if that's going to be the case here or if they're going to make them free. I'm pretty sure you have to buy the F1 package within the Apple TV app because I did see something in a press release that said something to the extent of they're going to make some of the races and the qualifiers on the free side. So if you're an F1 fan and you've been like tuning in to some races on ESPN, now you have to go over to Apple TV and then presumably buy another package. I have to tell you, when MLS went to Apple TV, I was like, hey, that's a great idea. It's a great move. Everybody's going to streaming anyway. It's wonderful. What a great idea. And in the time since then, I've realized that only works if you have legitimate market share, which Apple TV does not yet have. There is really no reason for you to go to Apple TV unless you really like the show Slow Horses, which I love with Gary Oldman. Fantastic show. Absolutely wonderful show. You clearly haven't seen it. It is a great show, Amadeo. You have to go out of your way to go watch Slow Horses. You get to listen to Gary Oldman just like hate the people that are on his team. I'll tell you, he was my Joe. I love it. Great show.
I might have an answer for you on the F1 thing.
What's that?
I think it's included with Apple TV. F1 TV Premium, F1's owner premier content offering will continue to be available in the US via Apple TV subscription only and will be free for those who subscribe.
Yeah, but is that for those who already subscribe to F1 TV? We'll have to find out. I'm not sure. But you might be right, but I'm not sure. We don't want to mislead the public here.
This is from Apple's website, so that's
well, you can't trust Apple, can you? Or maybe you can. Who knows? All right, so that's interesting news. Let's get to the positivity because this is a very long show today, but it's a Friday and who cares, right? Right. Let's get to the positivity before we head out. Let's start with wow, that's really, really interesting news, which is Joel Embiid has been cleared to play. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Don't worry, friends. Joel Embiid is clear to play. We're going to give credit to where it is originally due. We're going to give credit to where it came from first, which is Crispy Hayes. Excuse me. Chris Haynes put this out yesterday. Philadelphia 76ers star Joel Embiid has been cleared to make his preseason debut tonight against the Minnesota Timberwolves. League sources tell me. And then obviously after that, you get a million can confirm from team source, yada, yada. So Joel Embiid is cleared to play in the preseason tonight We'll see if it happens. We'll see if he's on the court tonight. He might be, he might not be. It certainly gives you hope that he'll be available for the season opener. Paul George is not expected to be available for the season opener, which is fine. I will be interested in how many minutes Embiid plays. I'm not really thinking about tonight. It's more about the season opener. I'm fine with Joel Embiid playing 20 minutes a game to start the season as he ramps up. I'd much rather have a Joel Embiid that you have to do a slow ramp up with and then eventually get to a point where you feel confident enough in his body that he can play 35 minutes a night or however many minutes a night. I don't want them to go all the way and have Embiid play, 40 plus minutes in his first game of the regular season. That to me is like a recipe for disaster. Where do you land on it?
I mean, I'll be excited to watch him play. It's just always going to linger in the back of my mind. Oh God, when's the injury going to happen? When's the injury going to happen? But I know you brought this up, like I believe it was the last show or something like that. How much they can load manage him this year, and we'll just see. But I do think him just being healthy will be a good vibe for this team, and hopefully that'll just make it fun to watch again. And yeah, granted, the Eastern Conference is going to be very weak this year, so anything can happen. But it's just, here's a question: who's going to get hurt first, Embiid or Hip Hop coming back at 50 plus years old?
In the case of MO23, maybe the answer is porque no los dos, because he's going to be hip hop. So if Embiid puts on the hip hop mascot costume, it could be both. Maybe they both get hurt at the same time. I'll also listen, this is how broken the fan base is though, right? Like Ray Supper says, geez, the Sixers wouldn't mislead the fans, would they? JH in quotes, he's going to miss the opener due to an undisclosed injury that we lied to everyone about again. I mean, the sad thing is, no one's going to believe it until they see him play. And that they see him play consistently. I'm not ready to give you my official prediction for the season, but I am feeling sentimental, as I often do about the Sixers. And I do see a scenario to the Sixers making the playoffs this year, if for no other reason than the Eastern Conference sucks. I mean, the Eastern Conference is really, 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 really bad. Like all kinds of levels of piss poor. Like I'll tell you how bad it is. Okay. Follow me for a second, Amadeo. Is Miami a particularly good team? No.
I wouldn't think so.
Without Jimmy Butler? No. Is Washington a good team? No. Is Detroit a good team? Nah. Is Atlanta a better team? Yes, because if Kristaps Porzingis can play half the season or a little bit more, they all of a sudden are an interesting team. I don't think they're a great team, but they're interesting. Is Charlotte a particularly good team? No. Is Chicago a particularly good team? Probably not. Is Toronto a particularly good team? Indiana without Tyrese Halliburton? No. Brooklyn? No. Boston without Jason Tatum? Passable team. Not a terrible team. Could still be a playoff team. The Knicks, very good team. The Bucks have to be a good team at least with Giannis, right? Orlando, good team. But there are a whole lot of nah. And ultimately, that could mean the Sixers, could I see a path to the Sixers getting to the 6th seed? Yeah. Could I see a path to the Sixers getting the 3 or 4 seed in the conference? Not very easily. If we knew that some version of Embiid and Paul George are going to be healthy for most of the season, then yeah, you say anything is in play, right? Anything, except probably the number 1 seed could be in play. But just based on the fact that they're never healthy, I still think that a bottom end of the playoff picture is still very realistic. Very realistic.
I think they'll just make the playoffs just because that's how bad the NBA is. I just really think that's the case. But if they can show a semblance of health, maybe there is some hope.
Yeah. Ford says Eastern Conference does suck, but we've heard you say this before, and the injuries can be so bad that they don't win shit. Well, I mean, it's true. It's true. Chris Freed thinks the Sixers are going to win between 38 and 43 games. Well, that could get you up to over 500, so that's not the worst thing in the world, right? JH says, I 100% think they're going to trot Embiid out tonight just to shut people up and then load manage him, and we won't see him till December. Good God. Good God. If he plays in the preseason and then we don't see him again until December, someone is going to absolutely
lose their mind. Now, I want to get to the actual good news. Okay, that is good news that Joel Embiid's coming back. But there's really good news.
There's more.
Our national nightmare might be coming to an end. Because earlier today, we saw a little report come out of Adam Schefter, and it warmed the cockles of my heart. Because change could be a brewing for Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment Group. Because, oh yes, Bob Myers has been hired by Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment as the president of sports. So now he's going to oversee their portfolio of teams that include the Sixers, the Devils, Crystal Palace in the EPL, Joe Gibbs Racing, which I didn't even realize was under their purview, and of course is going to continue to support Harris with the Commanders. But all I can think about, who's the one guy I've wanted to get out of Philadelphia for a very, very long time? Who's the one executive in this city that I have wanted to see get the fuck out of town? Even more than Dave Dombrowski. Who's that? Daryl Morey! Now, I'm not saying that Bob Myers is going to replace Daryl Morey. But if this season goes sideways, if yet another poorly constructed roster, because this Sixers team is a poorly constructed roster, if another poorly constructed roster fails to get the job done, and that decision to double down on an injured Paul George and an injured Joel Embiid ultimately dooms this team again, Bob Myers is a smart enough guy and will have Josh Harris's ear enough to say, it is time to pull the plug on the Daryl Morey experiment. Now, do I think that Bob Myers is being installed as the president of sports of Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment to backdoor his way into becoming the president of basketball ops for the Sixers? I do not. I don't actually think there's a path there, unless in an interim basis he takes over control for a bit. I think Bob Myers has higher aspirations than that. There have long been rumors that he's wanted to be an NFL executive. I do not view him as wanting to take this macro role as a sort of facade and to kind of pull wool over Daryl Morey's eyes and then go in and like take his job. Would that be great? Sure. I don't think it'll happen. What it does do is ensure that there is someone who has Josh Harris's ear, that if this does go sideways, that Morey will lose his job. And I believe in Myers' ability to find that up-and-coming rising executive to take Daryl Morey's spot and to hopefully give the Sixers team hope. So one of two things is going to happen. Sixers are going to have a good year because Embiid and Paul George are healthy and the young guys take a step. And maybe VJ Edgecombe looks awesome and Tyrese Maxey looks awesome and Jared McCain comes back and looks great. And they can overcome a very haphazard roster and make a nice run in a depleted Eastern Conference, which would all that would be great. Or the wheels fall off and Bob Myers looks at Josh Harris and they line up Daryl Morey. And one of them, I don't know which one it is, probably Bob Myers, who we're going to call Khaleesi for right now, looks over to Josh Harris and says, Dracarys. And Josh Harris flames at Daryl Morey and fires him. That's what I would like to see happen. Okay. Ultimately, I would like a good Sixers season. But if the alternative to a good Sixers season is the firing of Daryl Morey, I will gladly take it, Amadeo. That's all.
Yeah.
See, we ended on positivity. AJ also asked, why does Dombrowski sound like Owen Wilson? Because I kind of intentionally, wow. We like Bryce Harper. Wow. All right. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I think it's time to go.
Did a longer show than normal.
We almost did an hour and a half here. That is a very long Friday show. I thank the people who checked in. Chris Freed called in for the first time. AJ called in for the first time. We might do more of that going forward. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. Amadeo, thank you for being here. Go find Amadeo. He's over on Twitter at Amadeo Gracia98. Where else can the people find you, Amadeo?
You can also find me on YouTube. It's TTP Sports. I do recaps whenever I have
Trust the
chance.
process. TTP,
Yeah.
trust the process. Sports.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
When I'm not overloaded with work from you and Hunter, I have the chance to do stuff on my channel.
There we go. That's what it's all about. It's like the hokey pokey. That's what it's all about. All right. Thank you,
Yep.
Amadeo. If you are looking for even more, Phightin Words dropped a new episode this morning. That's available in podcast feeds over on the Joy Media channel and the Phightin Words YouTube channel. Snow the Goalie has been doing shows all week. Press Row Show, as well as Snow the Goalie Radio over at Chickies and Pete's. We did that on Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we will be at the Drexel Hill location. We'll be at Warminster. Next week, we'll be at the Chickies and Pete's in Warminster. Then in 2 Wednesdays, we'll be at Drexel Hill. So, I don't know, find some time in your schedule to come on out, support Snow the Goalie in person on Wednesday nights. That's a 6 o'clock start. But before all that happens, I will be back at Xfinity Mobile Arena on Saturday night with Bundy, with Ant, with intern Andrew, as the Flyers take on the Minnesota Wild. That will be live streaming starting at 6:30 p.m. on Saturday. Flyers Wild, the Press Row Show over on the Snow the Goalie channels and Joy Media channels. And I got to be honest, I am absolutely out of energy, sort of. And on that, I thank you for watching the show. Make sure you like the video, share the video, subscribe. And if you're listening in the podcast feed, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Until Friday. No, wait, it is Friday. Until Monday. This has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. We didn't even really talk about them, but I hope the Eagles don't suck this weekend. We'll find out pretty soon. Have a fantastic Friday and a great weekend. Talk to all of you on Monday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.